Morning. Thank you for being here. We'll have to go ahead and get started. February 4th minutes from January 27th.
Senator, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the reading of the minutes. If everyone should have had an opportunity to look at them ahead of time, unless you haven't. If you have, then we can do it. Suspend the reading and
I have a motion to suspend the reading of the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor say aye.
and that was with approval.
Any nays? All right. We're now at new business. And before we get into the new business, we need to discuss and vote on the amount in which we're going to cut annual appropriations in light of the cuts that the TVA has made, the continuing decline in TVA funds. And we've had discussed several numbers as to what would be most fitting amount to cut. We discussed 15% up to 25% cutting annual appropriations just in order to balance our budget for 2014. And so at this time, I'll open that up to discussion and see what the committee's desire is.
I had run some numbers myself, and I may be a bit off. I think a 15% cut. Okay, that's why 15% cut gives us basically a positive balance every year of around $20,000. And I really think it'd be in the best interest to look at something more than that. 20 or 25% cut would increase that available amount to anywhere between $80,000 or $110,000, depending on what we went with. But basically, if we're looking at having a truly balanced budget with this program, we need to be sure that our expenditures don't exceed our revenues. So that $20,000 or $80,000 or $100,000 is going to be what we have to work with for the rest of the year. So I think we don't need to limit ourselves in case there's that need. Obviously, there's cash in the account for emergency situations, but I think that we discussed before, we need to keep some amount in there in case a major issue occurs. But we need to have some for these requests that we're going to be considering today, additional amount sent back. So again, I think it would be in our best interest to look at 20 or 25% even in going ahead and cutting these appropriations. And then if at the end of the year we see that more can be done, maybe additional funds can be given to the entities.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, and my suggestion would be someone entertain making a motion of a 20% cut and put us in the middle of the 15 to 20 so that it's not such a heavy hit to our annual appropriations this year, and then consider cuts again in the future if TVA continues to go down, but that we would do it incrementally as opposed to too large a lump sum at one time after them having received a 25% cut just last year. So I'd suggest meeting in the middle there at maybe a 20% cut.
Like I said, based on those calculations, I think it comes to somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000 we would have for the other appropriations, which is better than the 20, obviously. 8,000.
This is based on looking at the annual appropriations, right?
Right, just the annual. And with
Should be about $100,000 with 20%.
well,
You went off the 1 million.
the thing we've got to consider are these items that aren't going to be cut. Do we want to include that in this 20% cut, or do we want to limit that until we've had time to review this further?
You doing the cut just across the board to everybody?
To all the annual appropriations.
To all,
Of course, fire departments and the EDA are fixed into the bill, and so we won't be cutting those.
Those aren't in, yeah, those aren't in
And
there.
those aren't on your list.
You're doing the 20% on the total contribution of 1,046,000, correct?
So in that case, yeah, it would be
That would leave a little bit of money for
yeah.
any people that come in,
Little projects,
little stuff.
yeah, little support.
Based on,
Right.
So across the board then is what we're considering.
Yeah, that's,
Keisha?
the circuit clerk fluctuates, and, I don't know that we could cut that one.
That would be my biggest concern, would be that particular one because of how that was set up. I would suggest that we at least keep that one at whatever the amount will be based on those taxes. And then I guess everything else, we can look at the 20% cut on.
Is there any others that we need to look at? I know last year we gave special consideration to education. We did not cut education as much as a full 25%. But it is such a large portion of the TVA and lieu tax money that they would have to be included this year in the 20% cut.
And I would need to look into the senior meds program.
Based on what I'm understanding, there's still some research we have to do. I think it's somewhat self-supporting. We've looked at the dollars on that one, and they're in pretty good financial shape. That doesn't mean that they absolutely can be, but I think that they can make it at least this year until we figured out what other things as a county, as a program kind of through the county. That's a senior RX program, correct?
Let me ask this of the committee. What if we cut annual appropriations as a whole across the board, but then for those, such as the circuit clerk's office, that are on, in a different situation, then we consider a second appropriation for those?
Just go back through each one and do an amendment and add the 20% back if needed, is that what you're saying?
Add a percentage back, yes, if needed.
We won't know the clerks until they get us the numbers anyways, correct? So
Because,
That fluctuates.
it fluctuates.
we would have to vote on that at that time then for sure when it came up.
This is once a month, is that correct? Okay. And there may be some others that we're overlooking, or there may be some,
I think that's the fair way to do it, just do the cut and bring them back individually, vote on.
ma'am, would you care for some water?
That would probably be helpful, I'm sorry.
With that, then I guess I'd like to make a motion for a 20% cut to all annual appropriations with that possibility. We will have to come back and vote on a few of these, obviously, if the funding is necessary.
Okay, we have a motion to cut 20% annual appropriations across the board with consideration of a few that may need an additional appropriation to bring that 20% back. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? Okay, motion carries. Now, with that in consideration, having made the cut 20%, then we can proceed forward, I think, with some of the old business and have a better perspective as to what you can vote in favor of and what you can vote against. Now, I will remind you, as Mr. Chairman pointed out earlier, that's going to leave us with about 80 to 100,000.
It looks like, based on what we just did, about 100,000.
About 100,000. And so that would, that's going to be roughly a little over $8,000 a month extra funding that we have to appropriate without going below the budget. Of course, not taking into consideration the makeup money that comes at the end of the year from TVA, which is difficult to budget, so we'll just leave it where it is.
And that Well, it's for this fiscal year, won't actually come until probably, well, I guess it'd be if we're going January to December. Usually get that, what, November sometime,
About December,
December?
November, December.
Did they check?
October.
Oh, did it?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, it came in October last year?
Mhm.
Okay. We won't point any fingers as to why it may have come later than at other times. All right.
Need to go over the new or the old, which one?
Well, I would at this time, in relation to, we have some new funding requests, gentlemen, but as you know, we've got quite a bit of old business that has accumulated. So I'd ask the committee that you entertain a motion of carrying over current new business and let us vote and take care of previous business, old business today. And we simply carry over new business, although I think we may have some here who want to speak in regards to the requests pertaining to new business. Just to allow all that we're doing today to settle in and give us a better perspective of where we'll be financially, I would suggest that we entertain a motion that we carry over new business.
Would it be an objection by anyone if we consider, as far as the process, that new business be presented to us obviously once before we vote on it, so it would be presented to us 1 week and 2 weeks later we would vote on that item, unless it's something of an immediate need, so that we never have to vote on something the day it's presented to us?
I think the
You
board,
put that in the form of a motion.
Yeah, I'll make that a motion that new business come to a meeting prior, so we have those.
Second.
Okay.
okay, so basically we have a motion that new business, that new business is introduced on the agenda, but not to be voted on until the second meeting,
Of course, we can override that at any time.
Correct.
Majority vote.
with the ability to override at any time. Do we have a second?
I see.
Second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Need to go ahead and